Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series. I'm Sam.
And I'm Taylor.
So imagine a kitchen, right? Like a kitchen that operates 24 hours a day, employing hundreds of specialized chefs.
Oh, wow.
And they're all working frantically, just trying to figure out how to make like a humble, tiny baby eggplant taste like a feast fit for an absolute monarch.
That's just a crazy level of dedication.
Right. It's this intense, borderline obsessive culinary engineering, and that is exactly what we are digging into today for this deep dive. We are exploring Hyderabad.
Yeah, and we aren't using a geographical map for this, are we?
No, definitely not. To truly understand this city, you have to map it in, complex spices, slow-cooked meats, and just these ancient cooking techniques.
It is arguably one of the most fascinating culinary landscapes in the world. I mean, you have this incredible historical collision taking place there.
Yeah, like a clash of two worlds.
Exactly. You've got the opulent, heavy Mughal influences coming down from the north, and they're crashing directly into the fiery, really vibrant, local South Indian Telugu traditions.
And the mission for our deep dive today is to unpack 10 legendary dishes that chart that exact collision. So for everyone listening, you're going to grab a snack for this one.
Oh, absolutely. You will be hungry.
But to start, we really have to look at the undisputed crown jewel, like the dish that essentially serves as this culinary ambassador for the city globally.
We're talking about Hyderabadi biryani.
Yes, but okay, the method used to make it sounds honestly terrifying to me. It's called the kachi method.
Which means raw, yeah.
Right, raw. You were telling me they put completely raw meat and then partially cooked rice into a pot, seal it shut, and just cross their fingers.
It's a leap of faith, for sure.
It sounds like a culinary high-stakes trust fall. How on earth do you not end up with, a pot full of completely raw meat or just total mush?
I know, it sounds totally chaotic, but it is actually an absolute marvel of thermal engineering.
Okay, explain that.
Well, it relies on a technique called dum, which translates to breathe in. And the success of this trust fall is determined long before the pot ever even touches a flame.
So it's all in the prep work.
Exactly. It requires absolute unforgiving precision. For instance, the aged basmati rice is soaked for exactly 30 minutes.
Just 30.
Yeah, that specific duration ensures the grains expand to their maximum potential, right, but without losing their structural integrity.
Okay, so the rice is perfectly prepped. But what about that raw meat sitting at the bottom?
That's where the tenderization comes in. So the meat, usually bone-in mutton or chicken, is marinated overnight.
Oh, so it's breaking down before it even cooks.
You got it. The acidity in the yogurt base begins to break down the tough muscle fibers, and this marinade is intensely complex.
Like what kind of spices are we talking about here?
You have red chili powder, ginger, garlic, and then a very specific Hyderabadi spice blend. It prominently features star anise, black cardamom, and mace.
Okay, I feel like mace is wildly underutilized in cooking.
Oh, entire.
It's the outer covering of the nutmeg seed, right? It brings this incredibly warm, almost woody sweetness that really elevates the savory elements.
Yeah, the mace acts as this crucial aromatic bridge. It bridges the heat of the chilies and the rich, heavy fat of the meat.
That sounds amazing.
So once you have this highly tenderized, spiced meat, you basically build the architecture of the dish.
Like layering it.
Right. Raw meat forms the foundation layer at the bottom. Then you gently cascade that partially cooked rice right over the top.
And nothing else goes in between.
Oh, no. The chefs weave in structural flavor components between those layers. They scatter vibrant saffron-infused milk, handfuls of crispy fried onions, fresh mint, and coriander.
The smell must be incredible. And then comes the sealing process, right? This is the part that just fascinates me.
Dough seal.
Yes. They cover this heavy-bottomed copper or brass pot with foil, and then they physically weld the lid shut using a thick ring of wet wheat dough.
Yeah, creating a completely airtight vacuum.
Why dough, though?
Because when the heat hits the bottom of the pot, the moisture from the yogurt marinade and the meat itself rapidly converts into steam.
Right.
But because of that thick wheat dough seal, the steam has nowhere to escape. So it is forced to circulate back down, continuously basting all the ingredients in their own aromatic juices.
It's basically like a 16th century pressure cooker.
Exactly.
But wait, if it's on a fire, how does the raw meat at the bottom not just instantly scorch and stick to the pan?
That is the real magic. The secret is ruthless temperature manipulation.
Oh, so they change the heat as it cooks.
Yep. They blast the pot with incredibly high heat for just the first 5 minutes.
Just to get the steam going.
Exactly. It generates that initial burst of trapped steam. And the moment that steam builds, they drop the heat to the lowest possible whisper for 45 minutes.
Wow, 45 minutes on low.
And to ensure zero scorching, they don't even let the pot touch the flame directly. They place a tawa.
What's a tawa?
It's a thick, heavy iron griddle. They put that right between the fire and the pot. The iron diffuses the heat perfectly evenly, slowly coaxing the meat to the point where it literally falls off the bone.
While the rice above just fluffs up in the steam. That is brilliant. It makes total sense why there is such a fierce ongoing debate between Hyderabad, Lucknow, and Kolkata over who holds the biryani crown.
Oh yeah, people get very passionate about that.
Because looking at the different regional styles, the contrasts are just massive.
The philosophies are entirely different. I mean, Lucknowi biryani relies on a paki method.
Paki meaning cooked, right?
Yeah. The meat and rice are both fully cooked before they are layered and steamed together. The flavor is far more subtle, more delicate.
And then what about Kolkata?
Kolkata biryani introduces potatoes and boiled eggs.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they absorb the spices beautifully, but it creates a significantly heavier, starchier dish.
And because Hyderabad uses that raw kachi method we just talked about, those deep, robust spices are forced to penetrate every single grain of rice from the bottom up.
Yeah, every bite is packed with flavor.
Plus, there's no skimping on the protein. Like, it's not a rice dish with a side of meat. It's a substantial, meat-heavy feast.
Definitely.
And if you're visiting, you are spoiled for choice. There are legendary spots like Paradise Restaurant, which has been serving, over 1,000 plates daily since 1953.
That's right. And then you have Bawarchi, Shawhouse Cafe, Cafe Bahar, and Hotel Shadab.
Or, if you want to eat like actual royalty, the Jewel of Nizam offers a hyper-upscale experience.
It truly is the gravitational center of the city's food culture.
Right.
But, a dish that heavy and complex, it demands a counterweight.
Right.
You rarely see Hyderabadi biryani eaten in total isolation.
Which brings us to a massive surprise for me, honestly. When I think of rich, royal Mughal food, I just think of endless platters of meat.
Yeah, that's the stereotype.
But the way Hyderabad elevates its vegetarian fare is astounding. They do not treat vegetables as an afterthought at all.
Not even a little bit.
They apply the exact same rigorous culinary engineering to a vegetable as they do to a royal lamb dish. Let's go back to that baby eggplant I mentioned earlier.
Bagara balani.
Yes, bagara binding. How do you take a spongy, somewhat bitter vegetable and turn it into a delicacy?
Well, you build an incredibly complex gravy architecture around it.
Okay, break that down for me.
The process starts by deep frying small, tender baby eggplants. You fry them until the skin blisters and the inside turns into this soft, almost custard-like texture.
Oh, yeah.
But the eggplant is really merely the vessel. The real magic happens in the base of the curry. It's a rich paste made from dry roasted peanuts, sesame seeds, and desiccated coconut.
See, that sounds incredibly heavy, like a thick, nutty sludge. How is that appetizing as a side dish for an already heavy biryani?
It would be too heavy if not for the chemical transformation of the bagar.
Bagar, what's that?
Bagar is a tempering technique. The chef heats a pool of oil or ghee to a shimmering near smoke point.
So super hot.
Exactly. Then they drop in cumin, mustard seeds, and fresh curry leaves. When those spices hit that superheated fat, they aggressively pop and sizzle.
Oh, I love that smell.
Yeah.
But what is actually happening chemically during that sizzle?
Well, the high heat is forcing the spices to rapidly release their volatile essential aromatic oils.
Right.
And because those flavor molecules are fat-soluble, the ghee basically acts as a solvent. It instantly traps the flavor so they don't just evaporate into the kitchen air.
Ah, so you keep all that flavor in the pan.
Exactly. That violently flavored oil is then poured directly into the nutty paste.
Wow.
And then, to cut the remaining richness, they introduce a heavy dose of tamarind paste for a sharp, acidic tang, and a bit of jaggery, unrefined cane sugar for a subtle, earthy sweetness.
So the eggplant doesn't stand a chance. It just acts as a sponge for all those sweet, sour, nutty, and aromatic oils.
You got it.
And that same gravy base is used for what is arguably the ultimate biryani companion, right? Mirchi ka salan.
Oh, yes. The classic.
But here's my issue with that one. It's a dish made entirely of large, stuffed green chilies swimming in gravy.
It sounds a bit intense.
It sounds terrifying. I feel like eating a plate of chilies would completely blow out my palate, and I wouldn't be able to taste the biryani at all after that.
It does sound like a culinary dare, certainly. But this is where the food science of the dish really shines.
Okay, explain the science.
So those large green chilies are slit down the middle and stuffed with a spiced roasted onion mixture. Then they are submerged in that identical peanut, sesame, and coconut gravy we just discussed.
I think I see where this is going. It has to do with the fat content, right?
Spot on. Capsaicin is the chemical compound in chilies that binds to the pain receptors on your tongue. That's what causes the burning sensation.
Right, the spice factor.
But capsaicin is highly soluble in fat. The intense creaminess and high lipid content of the peanuts, the sesame seeds, and the oil, they actively bind to the capsaicin.
And that neutralizes the burn.
Exactly. The fierce heat of the chili is mellowed out into this warm, gentle hum. It transforms from a weapon into a mild, incredibly flavorful vegetable.
That is just brilliant menu design. And speaking of cutting through richness, there's kari dal.
Oh, the sour lentils.
Yeah, kari literally translates to sour, right? But this is light years away from a standard, comforting bowl of bland lentil soup.
It operates on an entirely different flavor frequency. It relies on ingredients like kokum or tamarind to inject a profoundly bright, aggressive sourness into the lentils.
And does it use that same tempering technique?
Just like the eggplant, yes. It finishes with a dramatic tempering, hot ghee infused with whole dried red chilies, crushed garlic, bay leaves, and black cardamom is poured over the top right before serving.
It turns a humble, everyday pulse into a deeply complex, protein-rich powerhouse.
Absolutely.
But if this is the level of intense labor and engineering they put into the accompaniments, imagine the demands on the royal kitchen for the actual centerpiece meals.
Oh, it was wild.
I want to trace these dishes back to the source, the Nizams of Hyderabad, because reading about their kitchen culture, it literally bordered on theatrical.
The wealth of the Nizams was legendary, and their kitchens reflected that limitless budget. Time and labor were not constraints. They were just, additional ingredients to be played with.
Let's talk about nihari. To me, this is the most extreme example of the slow food movement.
Oh, definitely.
I cannot wrap my head around the fact that royal cooks would start cooking at 10 p.m. to prepare a stew intended for breakfast.
A heavy, meat-laden stew.
Exactly. A massive stew at 6 in the morning. How does anyone function after eating that?
Well, it wasn't designed for a quick bite before a morning commute, right? It was a luxurious, prolonged morning ritual.
I guess if you're royalty, you don't have to rush to the office.
Right. Nihari is a mutton stew that simmers continuously overnight, bathed in cardamom, cinnamon, and bay leaves.
And what's the secret to it?
The critical mechanism, the reason it absolutely requires 6 to 8 hours of low, slow heat, is the bone marrow.
The texture is supposed to be completely unique, almost glossy. What is the marrow doing over those 8 hours?
So under that sustained, gentle heat, the marrow slowly liquefies. It leaches out of the large mutton bones and emulsifies directly into the spiced broth.
Oh, wow.
This creates an unbelievably silky, gelatinous texture that just thickly coats the palate. It carries the spices in a way water or regular fat simply cannot.
And I imagine the meat is just falling apart.
Impossibly tender. The long simmer ensures the tough cuts of meat just melt. And today, you don't need a royal invitation to try it.
Where can you get it now?
Authentic spots like Alpha Hotel. They still open at the crack of dawn to serve massive vats of nihari. You eat it with fresh, pillowy naan, a squeeze of lime, and a handful of sharp ginger julienne to cut the fat.
Okay, so if that staggering production is just breakfast, what happens at dinner?
Dinner is where the real showmanship comes out.
Let's look at Pathar Kagasht, which translates to meat cooked on a stone. This seems like pure spectacle to me.
It is very theatrical.
You take tender mutton, marinate it in yogurt, red chili powder, ginger garlic paste, and garam masala. But instead of grilling it over a metal grate like everyone else in the world, you sear it on a massive, heated slab of granite.
Yep. A literal stone.
Why a stone? Is it just to show off to the royal guests, or does it serve a functional purpose?
The theatricality is a nice bonus, but the choice of stone is deeply functional. It completely alters the chemistry of the cook.
So?
Think about a thin iron grate. It creates intense hot spots directly over the coals and cold spots everywhere else. Plus, all the melting fat and natural juices drip down into the fire and are lost forever.
Right, they just burn away.
Exactly. But a thick stone slab, however, absorbs the heat and radiates it perfectly evenly across its entire surface.
And I imagine it creates an incredible sear. I hear chefs talk about the Maillard reaction all the time on cooking shows. Is that what's happening on the stone?
Exactly that.
Oh, cool.
The Maillard reaction is the chemical interaction between amino acids and reducing sugars in the meat when it's exposed to high heat.
It's what gives brown food its complex, savory, caramelized flavor, right?
Spot on. Because the stone provides a solid, flat, evenly heated surface, the entire exterior of the meat undergoes this reaction simultaneously.
So no weird grill marks.
Right, you don't just get thin grill marks, you get a comprehensive, spice-crusted, caramelized shell that immediately locks all the juices inside.
And the stone itself contributes to the flavor profile, doesn't it? Imparting a very faint, earthy, mineral quality to the meat that metal simply can't replicate.
It's a masterpiece.
It really is. But this raises a huge question for me. You have these hyper-luxurious, time-intensive dishes locked behind heavily guarded palace walls. The techniques were closely held secrets.
They were.
So how does that culinary DNA escape the palace and become the chaotic, vibrant street food culture we see today?
That is a great question. That transition from exclusive royal indulgence to massive public consumption is deeply tied to religious observation.
All right, then.
Yeah. The best example of this democratization is found during the holy month of Ramadan. Specifically, if you go to the narrow, bustling lanes of the Old City and Medina market.
You're talking about haleem.
I am.
When I looked at the nutritional profile of haleem, it struck me as the ancient equivalent of a perfectly engineered meal replacement shake.
That's actually a great way to describe it.
It's a dish designed specifically to solve a biological problem: how to safely and effectively restore a human body after 14 hours of total fasting.
It is the ultimate restorative fuel, but the physical labor required to produce it is staggering.
How's it made?
Haleem is essentially a thick porridge. It's made of wheat, barley, lentils, and meat. To make it, cooks use massive, wide-mouthed cauldrons set over wood fires.
Massive cauldron.
Huge. They throw all the ingredients in, and then skilled chefs stand over the blistering heat, using giant wooden paddles to vigorously stir and pound the mixture for hours on end.
Wait, if you boil and aggressively mash meat and wheat for hours, doesn't it just turn into an unappetizing, stringy mush? How is that a sought-after dish?
You'd think so, but no. The mechanical action of the continuous pounding, combined with the slow heat, fundamentally changes the structure of the ingredients.
Like at a cellular level.
Basically, the proteins in the meat completely shred and dissolve, while the starches in the wheat and lentils break down and act as thickeners.
Oh, I see.
The elements fuse together into a single, cohesive, ultra-creamy consistency that literally melts on the tongue.
Biologically, because the ingredients are already broken down so thoroughly by the pounding, your stomach doesn't have to work hard to digest it at all.
Exactly. The heavy lifting is already done for you.
You get an immediate, massive infusion of high-quality protein from the meat, complex carbohydrates from the grains for sustained energy, and healthy fats from the generous lashings of ghee.
It's perfect after a long fast. You top a bowl of that with crispy fried onions and a squeeze of fresh lemon, and it's absolute comfort.
A nutritional powerhouse wrapped in incredible flavor.
Totally.
But, while we are virtually walking the streets of the old city, we cannot ignore the snacks.
Oh, we definitely cannot.
Specifically the lugmi. Food historians and locals alike frequently cite lugmi as the most criminally underrated street food in Hyderabad.
It really is.
It's a savory pastry, usually filled with spiced minced meat, but you can't just call it a square samosa, can you?
Calling it a samosa does a massive disservice to the pastry architecture involved.
Okay, defend the lugmi.
The dough for lukmi is heavily enriched with yogurt or milk, and it is rolled out so impossibly thin that when it hits the hot oil, it puffs up into dozens of delicate, shattering, paper-thin layers.
And they have that distinct diamond shape, right, with the rigidly crimped edges.
Yes, and that crimping isn't just decorative, it's a structural seal. It ensures the rich, fatty juices of the spiced minced lamb inside don't leak out and ruin the frying oil.
So you bite into that shattering crust, and the savory juices just flood your palate.
It's amazing.
And the aroma in those streets must be intoxicating, especially when you factor in the roadside grill culture, the Sikh and Bodhi kebabs.
The kebab stalls are the pulsing, carnivorous soul of the city streets.
Tell me about the Sikh kebabs.
Sikh kebabs require a chef to skillfully mold highly spiced minced meat around long, flat metal skewers. They are roasted, suspended over glowing wood coals.
Oh, so the fat drips down.
Exactly. The fat drips down, hits the coals, and then billows back up as intensely flavored smoke coating the meat all over again.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And the bodhi kebabs.
Those are chunks of marinated meat that develop that same gorgeous, smoky crust.
Eaten standing up on the street corner, pulling the sizzling meat straight off the iron skewer with a soft, handkerchief-thin rumali roti. It is street food perfection.
It really is. But eventually you hit a wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You eat your way through the heavy, spicy, smoky labyrinth of Charminar, and biological reality sets in.
The meat sweats.
Exactly. You need a palate cleanser. You need something to cut the richness, and a place to just sit down and socialize.
And this is where completely different cultural influence takes over.
The Persians.
Yes. The cafe culture in Hyderabad is an absolute institution, and its roots are distinctly Persian.
I always wondered about that. Why is there such an entrenched Persian influence deep in South India?
It actually stems from the historical wealth and ambition of the Nizams.
They just invited them over.
Kind of. They wanted to build a world-class court, so they actively recruited Persian scholars, architects, poets, and merchants to come to Hyderabad.
Ah, I see.
And those immigrants brought their deep-seated traditions with them, most notably their cafe culture, which revolves entirely around Irani chai and Osmania biscuits.
I tried to equate it to a British high tea ritual, but the execution is vastly different, isn't it?
Oh, entirely different.
It's not about dainty porcelain teacups and quick steepings. It's a heavy, caramelized, communal affair.
The brewing mechanism for Irani chai defies the typical Indian masala chai process. They do not boil the water, tea leaves, and milk together in a quick rolling boil.
So what do?
Instead, they take large copper kettles and slowly simmer milk and sugar for a remarkably long time.
So they are essentially slow cooking the milk.
Precisely. The sustained heat evaporates a significant portion of the water content. This naturally condenses the milk while simultaneously caramelizing the sugars.
Oh, wow.
This yields a remarkably thick, rich, amber-colored brew that carries these deep toffee notes. And it is a culinary sin to drink it without an Osmania biscuit.
Named directly after the last Nizam of Hyderabad.
That's the one.
And the engineering of the biscuit is entirely focused on the dunk, right?
It is. It walks a tightrope between sweet and surprisingly salty, but its true brilliance is structural.
Like how it holds up in the tea.
Yeah, the crumb is designed to instantly soften the millisecond it hits the hot caramelized chai. It acts as a sponge.
But it doesn't fall apart.
Exactly. It holds together just long enough to make it to your mouth without instantly disintegrating into a soggy mess at the bottom of the glass.
It sounds like the perfect, slightly salty palate cleanser. But, we cannot end our journey without addressing the grand finales.
The royal desserts.
Yes. First up, double kamitha. I initially assumed that just meant double sweet.
A lot of people do. It's a very common misconception.
So what does it actually mean?
The name actually derives from double roti, which is the colloquial term for the thick, Western-style milk bread used as the foundation of the dish.
Okay, got it.
It is, at its core, a bread pudding, but elevated to absolute opulence.
They take these thick slices of bread, deep fry them in pure ghee until they are incredibly crisp and golden, right?
Yep.
And then submerge them in milk that has been heavily steeped with green cardamom and saffron.
Right.
But the bread is only half the story.
Right, because the dish is crowned with raw brie.
And this showcases the legendary patience of the royal kitchens once again.
Absolutely. Raw brie is made by simmering whole milk in a wide shuttle pan for hours.
Hours. Just for the topping.
Yeah. As a skin of cream forms on the top, the chef constantly pushes it to the side of the pan, allowing the milk underneath to evaporate and thicken.
That sounds incredibly tedious.
It is, but it results in an intensely creamy, reduced milk jam full of sweet, clotted cream layers.
Okay.
The contrast is spectacular. You get the slight savory crunch of the fried bread against the dense, sweet raw brie, all heavily garnished with slivered almonds and fragrant rose petals.
It is pure decadence. But if you want a finale that leans into fruit, you have to look at Kubani Kamitha. This is another direct Persian import, relying entirely on dried apricots.
The technique here is all about concentration. They soak dried apricots overnight to rehydrate them, then slowly cook them down into a dense, jammy compote.
And it's not overly sweet.
No, the brilliance of the dish is its restraint. They add very little external sugar.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they force the natural, concentrated sweetness and the inherent tartness of the apricots to carry the entire dish.
Topped with a handful of crunchy almonds, and often served alongside a scoop of vanilla ice cream or fresh, unsweetened cream.
Perfection.
The interplay between the warm, tangy, sticky apricot jam and the cold, rich cream sounds like absolute perfection after a heavy, spicy meal.
It is the ultimate concluding note to the flavor journey.
Well, we have covered incredible ground today. We've examined the terrifying high-stakes raw method of the biryani, the chemical solvent tricks of the vegetarian curries, the bone-melting overnight stews.
The physics of grilling meat on hot stones.
Exactly, and the deeply caramelized Persian cafes. When you look at all of these elements together, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
What's that?
To me, the ultimate magic of Hyderabad's food scene isn't just the flavor. It's the story of how luxury was democratized.
Oh, I love that.
Centuries ago, these slow-cooked marvels, these intricately balanced spice blends, and the massive labor-intensive cauldrons of haleem were fiercely guarded secrets. They were locked away behind palace walls, reserved exclusively for the royal palate.
And today?
Today, those exact same meticulous methods and regal flavors are being served fresh, hot, and cheap on the chaotic, bustling streets surrounding the Charminar for absolutely anyone to enjoy. The culinary map of Hyderabad is ultimately the story of a royal exclusive feast that simply decided to open its doors to the world.
If you decide to travel to Hyderabad or elsewhere in India, we have a recommendation. Five Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact@fivesensestours.com. Note 5 is written as a numeral in contact at fivesensestours.com. Or WhatsApp to +919 845 677 446.